Hello and welcome to this Advanced Game Development and Design with Stencyl course. Some distinguishing points about this course: you will learn to build an entire computer game, not just half build a prototype, which is what you may have experienced from previous courses that you've taken. Not that there's anything wrong with that, you have to begin somewhere, but this is an advanced course. Go beyond the basics of the visual scripting language in Stencyl, the logic block system. You will learn to create advanced behaviors using custom blocks and even what equates to custom functions, accepting parameters, passing variables or attributes in Stencyl lingo. You'll learn to write some basic code, actual textual code. And how we'll do that is by transposing our knowledge of the visual programming language over to the textual programming language, understanding the correlation between the different elements. Because when you've learned one, you know 90% of what you need to know to write code. Learn important and useful theory such as design theory and marketing theory, business concepts, some important technical or theoretical underpinning which is going to be necessary for you to progress as a computer game developer in a professional context. So multiple platforms. You'll be building to multiple platforms, or you'll know how to build to multiple platforms, which gives you a huge competitive edge. This cross-platform development is the holy grail of computer game development, not just indie game development, especially for indies, because indies need to keep all costs, all overheads, and all unnecessary time expenditure to an absolute minimum. Cut it all out, trim the fat, because you need to get quality games out quickly to as many markets as possible and then promote them as efficiently and effectively as possible. You'll also learn some really important soft skills. So when we say soft skills, we mean not necessarily technical, but life skills like project management, handling resources, handling your time management, and seeing things through. So what should I already know? Okay, well, I'll begin by saying that newbies should cope absolutely fine with this course because nothing is skipped. So if you follow closely, then you'll do okay. But it would be better if you had completed the intro course first. There's a link to that in the description if you wish to sign up. It lays a firm foundation, but you'll be fine either way. It's just a very good grounding to begin from. So what will I learn from a more technical perspective? Well, as we established already, you'll be developing a multi-platform game targeting both desktop and mobile targets. You'll be able to create and understand advanced game logic, that's a big deal. Develop engaging game mechanics, so that's both technical and theoretical or conceptual. Create heads-up displays and GUI systems, create level selection screens, save and load game sessions. You'll be able to use in-app purchases to monetize your game. You'll be able to create sophisticated menu screens, manage game resources and variables, more on that later. You'll learn about ad integration, specifically for Android, and also for iOS, advanced debugging skills. Now, nothing I would say can be emphasized more or should be emphasized more than debugging skills and troubleshooting ability when it comes to game programming, game development, because things will not always work and you need to be able to figure out why, and if you cannot do that, if you don't develop those abilities, then you're going to be a very frustrated person for the rest of your life if you're trying to be a computer game developer. But the good news is that anybody can learn to debug, anybody can learn to troubleshoot, and you will. In-depth understanding of the Stencyl tool and engine, so you'll come to understand the basic underlying concepts and structures that are in place there, and which we are harnessing then to create our games. You'll understand the fact that we have two elements to Stencyl. We have the tool set where we build our levels and we import our assets such as sound files and such as tile sets, actor animations, etc., backgrounds. And then we have the engine, which is basically a huge pile of classes. So all of these codes, all of these objects, and they all are used by the tool to power your game. So it's like the underlying code for your game, the nerve center, if you want to think of it in those terms. It's hard to get more specific than that until we've established basic principles about programming, so you'll understand that a little better later on. And the ultimate goal, and if you stick with me then you should be able to get to this point, is to kickstart your indie game development career. So that's what really distinguishes this from anything else that you might have done so far. The focus of this course is to get you to a point where you are motivated and ready to start building full games and publishing them. No matter what the scale, you'll learn to do vertical slices and then build those out into full projects. So develop a multi-platform game. You'll be able to publish your games once you have the appropriate licenses purchased, of course, with Stencyl. The basic version of Stencyl is free to publish to commercial stores. Well, you have to purchase certain licenses for that, but extremely reasonable. Very reasonable subscriptions there. Nothing to worry about, really. So, see, these are just 3 of the stores which you can target: Steam, Google Play, App Store. We could add to that Samsung apps. Create and understand advanced game logic. So this is a snapshot of the visual programming system in Stencyl. Many of you have already seen this, but even if you haven't, to a novice's eye, it's pretty clear that you're working with blocks here, and every block represents an element of code. Every block does something. It has a specific meaning, and when you combine them in certain ways, then they can add up to create these very complex behaviors. So hence why we call it a behavior designer when we're working with these blocks. We'll learn to use them in an advanced way because we'll have an understanding of programming concepts, advanced programming concepts, which you really do need if you want to harness the full power of this programming system. We'll learn to develop engaging game mechanics and the relationship to an extent as well between the narrative or the mythology of our game and the mechanics themselves, or you might say the relationship between the game system and the fictional world. You will create heads-up displays and GUI systems within your game. This is just a splattering of some of the assets that will be used in doing that. Create level selection screens. This is something that has been requested again and again by my past students and current students alike, so here it is. You'll learn how to do this, an essential element in building a prototype into a functional, polished game. You'll learn to save and load game sessions using Stencyl's inbuilt saving and loading system. You'll work with in-app purchases to monetize free games, free-to-play games. Both for iOS and Android, this can be done very simply within Stencyl. We'll create menu screens. We'll learn to manage game resources. This has 2 meanings. Firstly, you'll come to understand in principle how the memory is handled by the system, whether it be a mobile phone or a desktop computer, Mac, Linux, and Mac, Linux, or PC, that is actually executing the game file. No matter what it is, it's still a binary system, zeros and ones. It's still a computer system, which means that the same basic concepts apply to memory management. So we can optimize our use of memory, and we want to balance aesthetics and performance always. We want to have them balanced, so we don't want to have massive performance but no gain, just tiny little pixels doing indiscernible things. But we don't want to have incredible aesthetics and zero performance either, so you have to balance those 2 things by having the right level of aesthetics and performance. one not totally outweighing the other. Ad integration, generating income from free games. Advanced debugging skills, hugely important. As an aside, you will notice that my method is a little different to that of some instructors that you may have followed on previous courses. I don't believe that it's in the interest of the students, at least in this kind of course, a course involving programming and technical know-how, or problem-solving skills, in other words, with computers. I don't think it's in the interest of the students to edit out every mistake, everything that goes wrong when you're developing whatever it is you're developing, the projects, and recording that for your course. Because if you do that, then you're cutting out an essential element of the experience for the student, and that is the experience of when things go wrong, and you have to figure out what's wrong and fix it. That's what troubleshooting, that's what debugging is all about. I don't cut that out, I leave it in, and quite simply because I think you need to see it, and you need to learn those skills. In fact, I don't think that, I know it. So there will be a focus on that, and just be prepared. There will be sessions that will be almost entirely devoted to debugging, and if you stick through them, you're going to learn a valuable skill. And you will acquire an in-depth knowledge of Stencyl. You will go from beginner to expert, from beginner to pro. And that's really what we're gunning for with this course. So finally, let's kickstart your indie game development career.